Ladies and gentlemen, we're here to talk about the new Mean Girls. Nick, get in, loser. We're going podcasting. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Two Peas on a Podcast. 2023 is in the rear view. We did our best movies of the year last week with our boy Justin Winters.
Big
so
dub.
I can actually So I can actually use the tagline again this week that we review the latest and sometimes greatest movies every week. Gerald here with you, and on the other side is the most popular girl in school. Nick, how are you?
I'm just putting a little note in my burn book here. Gerald Morris, facial hair like a dead rodent. Okay, got it.
I can't believe you.
Man.
I thought you liked my beard. I should have dyed it pink for this episode.
What's up, baby?
Man, how are you? I'm good, brother. How are you?
I'm ready. I'm eager. I'm ready to get colorful and sing and dance and have a great time here. 2024. Peas 2024. Is this our year, Gerald? This is our year, baby. This is the one.
Have you seen did you see the meme that went viral on January 1st where it was just Ben, you know that thing of Ben Affleck where he looks irritated? He's like holding the cigarette and staring up. You know what meme I'm talking about?
Oh, that's me like just before I hit like the enter studio button when I join the recording every week.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Well, anyway, on January 1st, it's a picture of Ben Affleck doing that. And it just says, well, I already fucked up. I guess 2025 is going to be my year. It's on day one.
Come on now.
All right, so obviously, if you haven't guessed by the artwork or the drops that we've been inserting here, we are reviewing the new Mean Girls adaptation. It is a movie based on a musical, and the musical was based on a movie. So I want to talk a little bit about that, too. I did a little research before the episode, Nick. I think that's a very interesting kind of niche there. There's a couple movies that kind of surprised me following that category, and now Mean Girls is another one. But before we get there, Nick, we start every episode out with what we call one big question, buddy.
You gotta ask yourself a question.
I have a lot of questions. Number one, how dare you?
One big question, Nick. I had you go over there to I think you grabbed one out of the Facebook group, and we're gonna do our best to answer it. So what do you got over there from the fans, buddy?
So Joey DiCarlo, Pod Before Life himself, So Wizard Podcast, wants to know, Gerald, what costume would you turn sexy to wear to a Halloween party? I felt like that was the most important, most pressing question of 2024 is what is G's sexy Halloween costume?
I can't believe Joey's trying to get me canceled in January. Gotta get a little further into the year here, Joey. Now, wait a minute. Now, I guess Joey didn't elaborate, but I'll just ask you. So now, is it I'm wearing the costume? Or I just want to see this as a sexy costume?
It says, what costume would you turn sexy to wear to a Halloween party? So you're wearing this. You're wearing this.
Wow. Now you have to have one for this too. So if you have one.
I've got it. I'm good. I'm already ready.
Go first. You go first then. You go first.
I'm already ready. You mentioned it before the recording. I'm going to go as Jason Kelsey at the Chiefs-Bills game, like after... like shirt off, like drinking a bunch of beer in the press suite, just screaming his head off. Like
that's too easy though.
Listen, I could 100% pull that look off. I just need to get a little bit more full in the beard here. I could walk around shirtless. Be great.
Yeah, but that's such an easy costume though. You just take your clothes off and grow a beard. I mean, you can do that tomorrow.
Yeah. He didn't say it had to be complicated. He just said it had to be sexy.
Right, okay.
I mean, come on. The tarp comes off, baby.
Let me think. I tell you what I'll do. Let's get a sexy Shrek. I'll be Shrek, but like a hot Shrek. You know what I mean? Where the girls are kind of like, ooh, I don't know. I kind of want to do this, but I probably shouldn't. You know what I mean? Is that what Joey was going for or not? I don't know. I told you he was trying to get me canceled.
I apologize to every one of our listeners, viewers.
Any Shrek fans listening, I'm so sorry.
Anyone who just pictured Gerald painted green with like
Sexy
a painted on six pack and everything.
I don't know.
Stuff a sock full of quarters down your drawers too.
Yeah, I can make that happen. Let's do that. You know, I don't. Hey, the pitchforks would come out. I know that much. That's a little Shrek joke there, a little callback.
Walk around calling everybody a donkey.
Joey, thank you so much for the question and for trying to get me in crazy
Joey.
trouble. But we appreciate you listening and submitting the question this week.
Yeah, and you got sexy Shrek out of it, Joey. Now how do you feel?
There you go. You got sexy Shrek and Nick showing up shirtless to the next Halloween party that he goes to. So
right.
Well done. Well done.
That's right.
Nick, we're going to talk about Mean Girls tonight. Like I said, the latest adaptation of the very popular teen comedy. And we'll have our discussion on the movie, buddy. We don't know what each other thought of the film. We always give our rating up top at the very beginning of the review. We have not discussed it with each other. And what we call the early score reveal.
Damn it, this always happens. I think I'm going to score and then I never score. It's not fair.
It's not fair.
It is not fair.
It's not fair.
Butthead. Who is that? That's Butthead?
Beavis.
That's Beavis. Beavis, it is not fair. All right, here we go. Out of 10, Nick. You got your little fucking
I'm ready.
whatever
I'm ready.
you're.
I got it.
All right, here we go. 3,
Jeez.
2, 1.
Oh, I got to get it on the actual camera. I couldn't find the camera. 7 out of 10 for me.
A 7 out of 10 from Nick and a 6 out of 10 from me.
Let's go, baby.
Which puts us at a 6.5.
Yeah.
Pretty eye to eye there.
Oh, it sucks. We're doing 2024 and you're already doing math out the gate here. Come on.
Away, buddy.
I need you to regress here.
The limit does not exist. All right. Look, I was pulling this up before we started recording, Nick. There have been 17 feature films that are in a category films based on musicals based on films. And
17,
this would
huh?
Yeah, this would be the 17th of those. Wow. I'm not going to list all of them, but some notable ones this year, actually, The Color Purple, which is a big Oscar player, is a musical
that makes sense.
Reefer Madness, which I know you're close to, the movie musical, is one. And The Producers is a big one as well. Obviously,
the
film
Producers so much.
in 2005 with Nathan Lane, Matthew Broderick. Those are just a few, but this is interesting, and it came up. You know, we picked Joey's question. It was kind of fun, but a lot of people kind of asked an iteration of the same question, and we'll kind of have our general discussion without any spoilers, even though this original movie is from 2007, and if you're listening to this episode, you probably know about Mean Girls, but we'll try to keep it somewhat spoiler-free here in the beginning. But generally speaking, to kind of lead us into the discussion, what do you I mean, obviously you gave it a good score, but how many times before, like, when is enough of redoing the same kind of story? Like, why did this work for you? Because a 7's a pretty good score.
I mean, let's face it. I mean, honestly, the original script for the original Mean Girls, which I'm not slavishly attached to the original Mean Girls. I've seen it once, like a year or so ago. So I do not have the attachment to it that a lot of people do. But I mean, the script for the original Mean Girls is why it has endured, I think, honestly, Tina Fey's original script. And I think all of that is retained in the musical version of this story. And I mean, I've got, we'll get into it as we get going forward on different aspects of the film and whatnot, because I think certain aspects of it probably work better than others. But I mean, at its core, as long as you do Mean Girls well, it's always going to get a good score. Does that make sense? Maybe that's a cop out. I don't know.
No, but because it's a good story at the foundation.
Yeah, it's a good solid foundation.
Right.
I mean, you get Tina Fey back in to write the script for this. It modernizes it. There's a lot of social media commentary in this now that obviously wouldn't have been in the original film. Things like that. I really, really think that it takes the story and it pushes the parts of it that need to be modernized into that kind of modern place, if that makes sense. And
Sure.
I mean, musicals, like movie musicals especially, like it's really got to pop off the screen. Like I've really got to vibe in with the mood of the music and really just kind of sit there and bop along. I don't think every single number in this was necessarily a straight up bop or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I had enough fun with it. I mean, it's already Mean Girls. They didn't do, I don't think, a disservice to the original. And then threw in a whole bunch of extra like musical numbers and all that stuff for fun, for color. Yeah, I liked all that stuff.
Sure.
So, what about you?
I dug it too. I think what's interesting, and people have, yourself included, have heard me say this before, but I'm not a musicals guy. I don't typically gravitate towards them. I don't really seek them out. My wife comes from a musical theater's background, and she loves that stuff. And I'll often go to the theater with her, especially before we had kids. We used to go all the time.
Yeah.
And she used to work on different productions and stuff like that in costumes. So I do have a connection to it, and I do respect it like on a crazy level. But
Yeah.
when it comes to like an enjoyment, I've just always been the kind of guy that just much prefers like a narrative feature. Like narrative film is my thing. I don't really like when characters break out into song as opposed to having it in a dialogue format. I don't know. It just is hard for me to be in the place that the writers expect the person to be in. You know what I mean? It just doesn't seem real life to me. So with that being said, when it comes to Mean Girls specifically, why I am okay with this movie and why I liked it, although I do have several problems with it, but generally speaking, I would rewatch this. I mean, I thought it was a good movie that I would have no problem rewatching or showing it to a friend of mine or whatever. I do have that attachment to the original, whereas you don't, because you just saw it recently, and you just mentioned that you don't really have that attachment. I do. That's one of my favorite teen comedies of all time. I mean, I put it up there with like, this is in the 2000s what Clueless was in the 90s to me. And I absolutely love it. But to your point, I think that because it was true to that original story, it made it more enjoyable for me, because it was almost like, which I guess it was in a sense, but they were just taking Mean Girls from 2007 and they were adding in these songs and these different choreographed production numbers, but it was still the same story. Like it followed the same, like literally nothing was different aside from a couple minor things they took out and stuff like that. But generally speaking, it followed the same narrative.
Yeah.
So I think for that reason, I enjoyed it kind of because I knew what was like I was able to be there because I had witnessed it from the narrative standpoint, and because I was such a big fan of it. I mean, this is a no-brainer, but I'm going to obviously prefer the film with Lindsay Lohan. I mean, I think that's far and above a better watching experience for me personally. But I will say that if you love musicals or if you enjoy musicals, and I think it's fair to say you probably enjoy them more than I do, so I'm not too surprised that your scores.
I love musicals.
Right.
Love musicals.
I think if you do, this is going to work for you, and I don't see why it wouldn't. I think the reason it's not working for some people is because either they just don't like Mean Girls, like they're just not a fan of the movie, or they, whatever, or they are a fan of the movie and they don't think this is a good iteration of it. I'm kind of in the middle where it does have some problems and there's some weird kind of changes to the narrative, but overall, I had fun with it. We're going to get into specifics here in a second. Renee Rapp carried this for me as Regina George. I mean, absolutely. I was already a big fan of hers from the HBO series, what's it called? The Sex Lives of College Girls, I think it's called. It's the Sex Lives of College Students or something like that. It's an HBO original show that she's on, and she's hilarious on that show. And I just started fanboying over her a couple years ago when I saw her on that show. And I never saw the musical, but she was Regina George in the stage musical too, which I think is cool that they used her in the film production. Let's go ahead and peel back the spoiler wall, guys. Going forward, anything that we talk about the new Mean Girls movie will be spoilers. So if you have not seen this movie yet or heard any of the songs or anything like that, then come back after you have seen it. So, Nick, I just mentioned Renee Rapp. Talk to me a little bit about some of your favorite things about this new version of Mean Girls. What were some of your favorite performances, songs, anything like that?
I mean, I'll echo exactly what you said. I really loved Renee Rapp as Regina George, and I mean, I really loved kind of everybody in this cast. Everybody in this cast, I felt really belted. Like really, like in terms of the actual singing and things like that. Now, granted, I'm the most tone deaf person ever, so I don't know what makes a good like musical singing performance like super professional does. But I mean, to me, like I really loved all the singing. I really loved all the voices. There was obviously a lot of passion and everything like that in a lot of the performances. I really enjoyed. Gretchen had a song that was like I can't remember, or something like "What's Wrong with Me" or what. I don't remember all the names of the songs or anything like that now, unfortunately.
The one she sang in the closet or
The
whatever.
one she sang in the closet, yeah.
Yeah, that was good.
Like really liked that. Like there was a lot of different moments where I think a good movie musical really uses the music to kind of enhance the narrative already, and to really kind of it's character exposition moments. Like you're taking character moments, and instead of like internalizing them in a performance, you're expressing them outwardly through song and dance and insane choreographies and all that kind of stuff. I really liked like they did the song "The Apex Predator" about Regina George. I really like that one. A lot of the musical numbers I really thought were really home runs. I mean, that said though, I don't think there was anything like, I mean, you think about like a truly great musical, it's something that you can pop on and listen to long after you've seen the musical, right?
Right.
It's something that you're like, you want to listen to that
You
soundtrack
want to
again and
revisit
again
it,
and
right?
again. Like, I don't think there's necessarily anything here that I'm like dying to like, oh, I got to pop on the
No.
Mean Girls 2024 soundtrack and listen to that song again. It's
Yeah,
like, it
there's a
was all
couple
good,
for
but
me. That's funny that you say that because you're the musicals guy of the two of us. But there was a couple for me, like "Revenge Party" is a freaking all time
Revenge
banger.
Party's good. Revenge Party's
I
a
love
banger. Yeah.
that. I love the one that I guess it's Karen does. That's about the sexy costumes and curing sexy cancer.
Yeah,
and then
I'm a
she's
sexy
like,
doctor curing sexy cancer. Yeah.
yeah. And then she's like, I'm gonna cure sex cancer, and she's like, that's not a thing, and she's like, see, I did it. I love that one. That's super memorable. Great dance numbers with that. Now, I didn't see the stage show of this. Have you seen the musical?
No, I never saw the stage show.
Yeah, I haven't either. I wonder how that would play had we seen, because I read a little bit about this, and this is one of the musicals, one of the Broadway shows that basically died because of COVID. You know, it was running, it was super popular up until 2020.
Yep.
And I think it was in like May of 2020 or something like that Broadway shut down. And all the production ceased and, went on temporary hiatus. And a year and a half later, or whatever it was, that they kind of reopened Broadway, it was announced that Mean Girls was not going to come back. It was not going to be revived. So you got to imagine it would probably still be running on Broadway had COVID not kind of interrupted everything for a couple of years. But I wonder how that would play for someone that was a fan of the actual stage show versus the movie. I can't speak on it because I never got to see it on stage. It actually traveled around here, a traveling production of it. And my son Logan had a chance to go see it, and he decided not to go. And my sister-in-law, his aunt, was going to take him to see it, and he was like, I don't want to go see it. But he saw this movie with me, and he really enjoyed it. He thought it was a lot of fun.
I will say that, like, I know that the stage show had, because I was reading some just trivia and stuff like that about it today. There were like 14 songs cut from the movie.
Oh wow,
that were
that's
like that were in the stage show. Like that's a huge swath of music that didn't make it into the film adaptation. And I mean, I'm not sure necessarily why they decided to cut down the musical so much. I mean, this is not even a 2-hour long movie. I mean, if you're gonna swing for the fences with the musical of it all, why not just go for it altogether? Like, why not throw a few? I mean, obviously you can't probably include everything, but I was surprised to learn that. I was surprised to learn exactly how much music from the stage show had been cut out of it. But yeah, I mean, I really did enjoy the music for the most part. I really, I mean, I just like you talk about that, like where it doesn't necessarily click for you when you see characters jumping up and singing and expressing outwardly. Like I love it so much. Like I absolutely do. Like there's something so powerful, and I mean I know you feel this way about music. Like music is such a powerful, emotional, expressive thing, and like in a movie musical or in a musical, like in general, you're not just listening to the music, you're also like following along on this character's journey, or you're following along with this narrative, and then you're using that music to invest in that even more emotionally. And that's one of the reasons why I love musicals. I love musicals as much as I do. I will really, here's I guess the ultimate question though, G, and maybe this is early in the show to ask it, maybe we wanted to wait more toward the end of this to ask it, but does this does this musical version necessarily enhance upon the original Mean Girls? You know, like I'm not going to ask in a sense of did we need this?
Hmm.
Because obviously, like, you know, there was definitely an audience for it. I guess the stage show was really, really like good. Like people raved about it
Hmm.
or whatever. But like, it's like, if you turn it back into a movie, then the comparisons immediately have to come to the OG. And then the question immediately is, does it measure up? Does
Right.
it measure up?
I think as an avid fan of the original, I mean, I already kind of mentioned this. I don't think it holds a candle if you're putting the two of them next to each other. But with that being said, I'm glad this exists. I think that it is a, because Broadway canceled it. What are the odds that, whoever you want to name is going to be able to see it on the stage?
Yeah.
Pretty small. If it's traveling around off Broadway and you happen to catch it, great. But it's not like millions of people are going to be able to see it on the stage show.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm glad that it exists for that reason, because this is available to literally anyone now. Anyone that likes Mean Girls and likes musicals will now have access to see this version of it, possibly, being like some of the songs like you and I already mentioned. I wholeheartedly hope that anyone listening to this gives the Renee Rapp, Regina George a spin, because so good in that role.
Yeah.
And this is coming from a huge Rachel McAdams stan. I mean,
Yeah.
Rachel McAdams is one of the queens on earth. But with that being said, I think Renee Rapp really made that character her own. And like I said, I didn't get to see her do it on the stage, but apparently that was something that she crafted on Broadway, and then she brought it to the film production here. And I think that's super admirable. And I just, had it not been for her in this movie and her portrayal of that iconic character, a long time ago, Nick, you remember when me and Andy used to do the show, and
Yeah.
we did our top 5 movie villains, and this was probably 5 years ago, if not more. I named Regina George, which at the time was just Rachel McAdams, as one of my top 5 movie villains.
Yeah.
I mean, so alluring, and one of those characters in film that Renee Rapp is also captured now, but one of those characters that you love to hate, like, just like a lot of the kids at the school in these movies, where they worship her, but they're afraid of her. They want to be friends with her, but they hate her at the same time. And both Rapp and McAdams, in my opinion, just did such a phenomenal job at making the audience feel the same way. Like, you thought, like, that's the coolest woman on earth right there, but I also hate her. You know what I mean? And like, it's just a really layered character in that way. It's funny, it's sexy, it's kind of hard to describe, but I love that character of Regina George, and I think Renee Rapp nailed it here as well.
I think
But
it's good
I mean,
that you can also bring that sympathy to that character too when the story turns against
right.
her, obviously. I think it's nice that, I think she really, really captures and is able to, even in spite of how horrible she is, you're able to kind of empathize with her, and you're able to feel that sympathy when she's the one that's getting, victimized, or, is being bullied and things like that. I really love that about that too. And again, that's a vulnerability that Renee Rapp brings to that performance as well. I mean, it's just, yeah, I mean, I think in terms of like things that really shined about the movie, had to absolutely be up there at the top. But can we shift from that, and can we talk about the winner of the Amy Adams lookalike contest, Angry Rice, as
Yeah.
Katie Heron? Because the whole
Yeah.
time she was on screen, I could not get over how much like Amy Adams she looked like.
A young
And-
Amy Adams for sure. Yeah.
And like, if there's not like some kind of like mother daughter something or other with Amy Adams and Angry Rice already in the work, like, I don't know what you're doing, Hollywood.
Yeah.
But it's like
Although
a solid gold mine, or like a film where you have a woman who's a couple of different ages throughout the film.
There you go. Yeah.
And you have Angry Rice playing the younger
Yeah.
version, and then Amy Adams playing the older version, or something like that. Like,
It's funny you mentioned that, though, because I love Jenna Fisher in the role as her mom. I bought that. I love Busy Phil. Is it Busy or Bijou? I don't know. Busy
Busy
Phillips
Phillips,
as the mom of Renee Rapp. That was freaking perfect casting, kind of like what you're talking about. Had it been Amy Adams, but they wrote the dad out of this, right? It was just Jenna Fisher as a single mom.
I mean, you're asking me to remember details about a movie I saw.
Yeah, Katie's dad is. They don't even really mention him. I don't.
Like I
think,
said,
in this
I'm not
version.
the vault of Mean Girls knowledge to come to with
Anyway, the
all
dad's
your
not in it,
fact
but whatever.
checking of the original
No,
versus
that's
the
fine.
musical. I don't know.
Let's talk about some things we disliked about the movie. For me, at least from a performance, kind of taking me out of it aspect, it was. Hang on. Christopher Briney, who played Aaron Samuels, kind of reminded me of like a young Jack Nicholson or Christian Slater. Like, I'm not a girl and I'm not gay, but I just didn't see him as this dreamboat guy. And I also didn't really, was he even involved in any of the musical numbers in this movie? Or was he just an actor? I don't think he sang or anything, did he?
Yeah, I don't
I can't remember. I don't
I don't
he
think
did,
so.
though.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know. He just kind of seemed out of place to me. He didn't fit with this group. He would be my least favorite from like the cast perspective here. I thought all the girls were awesome. Like, I loved the two friends. I mean, Gretchen Wiener. I don't know. I'm a little biased to the old school Gretchen Wiener, but I mean, generally speaking, I thought the clique, the main group of girls, and I thought Katie Heron. I mean, going in Lindsay Lohan's shadow here. I mean, that's not easy. I thought she did pretty good. I think that. I want to hear what you think. Go ahead.
No,
I want to hear what you think.
I think all the plastics were great. You had Avantika's Karen, fantastic. I mean, again, brings
so
that
good.
same kind of aloof,
Mhm.
like just really like dumber than a box of rocks sort of sensibility to everything. That who was that Amanda Seyfried's character
Amanda
in the original
Seyfried, yeah.
one. Yeah,
Mhm.
and
Yep.
then you had Gretchen Wieners, so that was Lacey Chabert in the original one.
That's right.
I liked BB Wood in that role. I really liked BB Wood in that role. And yeah, Angry Rice, I think did a really good job as Katie Heron as well. I really liked Aluhi Kravlaho. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but as Janice, really loved that performance. Probably
She was
one of my
really
favorite
good, yeah.
performances in the entire film. I really love just kind of. And I mean, this could be stuff that is straight out of the old one or not. I'm not sure, but like, I really love the interplay between Janice and Damien, and I really loved like all the lighter moments and all the comedic elements that they brought into it whenever it would flip back over to them. Like, they got him in the audience there, and like when they're at the assembly or whatever, and he pops the fan up,
Yeah,
and everything. Like, there's so many just really nice, funny.
Yeah, I thought they
really
were good
enjoyable moments. I don't necessarily. I mean, Aaron was fine, but I mean, this is Mean Girls. Like, it's not about the dudes. It's not about any of the dudes.
He was just weird. He just kind of took me out of it. I'm like,
I
you guys are
just
attracted to
didn't
this
care.
dude. Like, I don't.
I'm a middle-aged
weird.
dude. I can't comment on this high school kid and be like,
I
oh
know,
man,
I know.
I see why the girls are into him.
I guess. But I mean, I mean, if it had been in Saltburn, it had been Jacob Elordi, it would have made
God
sense.
help me. You just
What
can't
did you
let
think
it go,
of?
can you?
I can't. I took a bath right before this. Sorry, it's fresh in my mind.
God.
What about Norbury and Tim Meadows kind of ending up together? Because that's not from the original movie, but the principal and Tina Fey, Tim Meadows and Tina Fey, are, I guess, a married couple. Did you like that kind of addition?
I mean, again, I've seen the original once, so
Yeah, but I mean, didn't that kind of like, whoa,
anything
wait a
that they
second.
changed about the movie, I was just kind of like that was a complete non-issue to me, like a non thing to me. It went right past. It was a
That's
funny
cool.
it was a funny little moment, like when they're sitting there having that little heated exchange, and then they have to be like, "I'll see you at home later. I love you." Like,
Right.
It was just a funny exchange.
It was an interesting addition.
I couldn't read anything
dislike
else into it besides that, because like I said, you can't come to me with any of this. Ooh, how do you feel about how they changed this thing? I'm indifferent toward anything like that.
I didn't dislike it. It was just I didn't expect.
That's
it.
the thing I'm more curious about. Like, speaking of that kind of thing, though, like of the different things from the original film to this,
Mhm.
like what are you vibing with the most? What are you not vibing with the most?
I mean, I vibed with it. I mean, I vibed with it a lot, honestly. I mean, I just have this weird connection issue with musicals. Like, it's just hard for me to like believe what's happening if it's happening through song in a musical. I don't know. I can't even like express what I mean even. But like this is a perfect example where if you have the Mean Girls film from '07 on the left and you have this movie on the right, it's like I like both of them on the surface. Like if I'm just watching them and enjoying them, then I like them both. Everything's fine. But when I'm supposed to like be invested in certain moments or certain conversations that are happening, if they're happening through this elaborate like production number, then it's hard for me to take away the emotion or connectivity I'm supposed to have to that scene. So it's not the movie's fault. Like, you know, there's billions of people in the world that love movie musicals, and that's great, and I can see why they do. But it's just a thing for me where it's harder for me. It has to work a little bit harder to kind of win me over if it's a musical. Whereas, you know, this movie came out and it was one of my favorite teen comedies ever, and it's essentially the same story. So that should kind of tell you what I mean there. But I did kind of vibe with it for the most part. I mean, I already mentioned I didn't like the dude that played Aaron. I think there was some interesting choices made with like some of the side characters that were a little more prominent in the first film that weren't as prominent here. Like, I thought Janice and Damien were pretty prominent in this movie, but they were also kind of playing the narrator role, kind of. Like, they would kind of show up and kind of tell you what's happening, and not from a musical perspective, although they did have some musical numbers, which I thought were hilarious. But, I don't know, that was just kind of weird to me, because they're basically main characters in the original film. Lizzie Kaplan
I really
played Janice
hoped
in the original film.
when they kind of set up the conceit right at the beginning of the movie, they have that like scene right at the very beginning where they're recording on a phone and they're like, this is a cautionary tale or whatever. Like, what I really thought was going to happen, and I'm kind of almost disappointed we didn't get this movie, was I thought they were going to do like it was going to be a more meta kind of thing. Like they were going to do a retelling of the story of Mean Girls, and not it just be like Mean Girls again, but like, you know, that they were going to be doing like an in-universe like
Right.
retelling of the story of Mean Girls or something like that. Like
Right,
that's
I get
kind
it.
of almost what that opening musical number really set up for me. And that's not what came to pass, obviously, but like I really was that was a good little nugget. I thought I really liked or hoped that they were going to kind of carry that thing through, and then they didn't.
John Hamm as Coach Carr. Hilarious.
It was
I
just, you know,
loved it. I loved him
he
too.
just showed up in there, and I was just like, okay,
I love how,
good to see John Hamm still getting work.
I love how he's like, this is not going to be awkward at all, I promise, when he's doing the sex ed course. I thought he was a pretty funny addition, though, a little cameo there. Speaking of cameos, we get a cameo from Lindsay Lohan in the last act of the movie. She's the judge at the Mathletes competition. And they use a lot of the same dialogue from the original movie. The limit does not exist, and they ask a lot of the same questions. I can't remember the young Indian guy's name that's like the super smart math guy that's also like a hip hop artist or whatever, but they kind of verbatim recreated his character in this movie too, and I thought he was really funny. He was still charming, and
Yeah,
it was kind of
Kevin.
great.
Yeah, I loved Kevin.
Kevin, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
great
didn't.
comic
And
relief.
I think this is going back to the kind of what I was saying earlier. You know, I don't think this does the original a disservice, and I think that's why
Right.
it's good to stand alongside it. It does update things, like I said. It kind of makes it more accessible to a modern, like social media centric kind of teenage audience versus the teenage audience from nearly 20 years ago, who obviously just at the very beginnings of social media back then and cell phones and all that stuff. Like, it's become such a prominent part of our lives, and I really did like that this movie explored that more, and that was a much more prominent role. Like, I mean, in terms of like, you know, making Regina George, like bringing back the wet look and making her look sexy and like all that stuff. Like, it's all viral videos. It's all recording things on phones and like all that stuff. I really like that. I think it stands alongside of the original really nicely. I mean, it might be a gateway to, maybe somebody hadn't heard of it, but maybe they know some of these younger stars who had been in stuff. Speaking of which, did you know? And I didn't realize this until I was reading about the cast earlier either. That's the girl from The Nice Guys. That's Ryan Gosling's daughter. Angry Rice was in The Nice Guys.
Oh my god,
I didn't realize that until I was reading about it earlier either. But I was.
We'll go back and watch the clips now.
Then it just
wow.
made me want The Nice Guys too. But
And there's this is just a side note too, but we were watching the movie. I took my son, my 10-year-old, to see it with me. And I guess there are like actual TikTok and like YouTube stars in the movie too, which I think is cool. But they like incorporated them into the movie where they're the ones kind of making this stuff go viral. There's I don't remember the name, and he's going to hate me for not knowing the name as we're recording, but there's a set of twins that are like these viral TikTok YouTubers. And it's two girl twins, and he watches a lot of their videos, and they do all this kind of like, pop.
Oh, so like
stuff.
the things when they're discussing the different events and whatever, like, yeah, they're having like the people that do like reaction stuff and
right.
And like reacting to different stuff. They have like millions of followers and whatever.
Right.
And, yeah,
right. And they're actually in it, so that's
like
cool.
I said, that's a really smart play. It's a really smart thing from Tina Fey and from the directors here, Samantha Jane and Arturo Perez Jr. It's a really, really smart play to not, because it would have been very, very easy to just make Mean Girls the musical. Okay, well, not easy, but they didn't have to necessarily update it to today either. But they did, and they did it successfully. Like I said, I don't think that this diminishes the original in any way, and I don't think it did a disservice to the original in any way. Where like sometimes you see things that are some kind of adaptation of something that came before. Although I'm willing to have the semantical argument that this isn't a remake of the original film, but that's a different argument probably.
Yeah, I don't really know how you could even have that argument because I don't really know what this is. Like that's why I said there's 17
it's
of these.
It's an adaptation. It's an adaptation of a remake. At least that's how I feel about it. The stage musical, would the stage musical be a remake of the movie? I would say yes. It'd be a musical remake. I don't think this is not a remake of the original film. It's an adaptation.
But it's a remake of the musical.
It's an adaptation of the musical.
No, it's a remake of the musical, right? And then the musical was a remake of the movie. So
I think
that's what I'm saying. I don't know.
I think once you square it, like the math, you get the calculus in there, it cancels out. Like this part of the equation cancels out this part of the equation. This is not a remake of the original film. Like I'm gonna say that. I do not believe that it's a remake of the original film.
I think that's fair. Actually,
I think it's removed enough from it down the line.
I never really thought of this as a remake of the original film, so I would tend to agree with you there. I think this is a musical.
But I mean, like I said, I don't really have anything else to say about it 100%. I think it's good. I think it's really, really enjoyable, and I think it stands alongside the original.
No, it doesn't. It's far behind the original, but it is enjoyable. And Renee Rapp saved me. Put me in your burn book. Anything you need, I'm there for you. Renee Rapp is fucking the queen rising. Please get to know her, guys, because up there with Rachel Sennett for me, she's one of the young actresses that I'm following very closely, and I love to see her slay this role of Regina George, and I can't wait to see what she does. She was just on SNL this week. I don't know if you saw, Nick. Rachel McAdams came out and introduced her as the musical guest on SNL, which I thought was awesome. So you had both Regina Georges there in New York this weekend on SNL, so that was awesome. I didn't see it live, but I saw clips of it today, and I was like, had chills. It was so cool. But yeah, I think it's an enjoyable experience. I mean, kind of like what Nick and I said. I mean, if you like musicals, you're going to dig it. If you like musicals and you liked Mean Girls, you're probably going to really dig it. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, give it a go. It was a 6 out of 10 from me and a 7 out of 10 from Nick on Mean Girls, which puts us at a 6.5 from the Peas. And I think it's a recommend from the Peas on Mean Girls, the musical, the non-remake musical version, iteration, adaptation.
I mean, and like the thing about it too is like all the core stuff about Mean Girls, like lifting each other up, not tearing each other down. I mean, it's definitely a very female empowerment centric type of film. but I think there's also universal stuff in there that everybody should pluck out of that too. Like, don't put each other down, build each other up. Stop hating people and love people. And then, like, I really, really loved, like, the final line of the movie. Like, like, even if it's somebody that you don't like or don't get along with or whatever, get off their dick.
Right.
you know,
Right.
like,
And there's another, and they have
even if you
another
don't get
good.
along with somebody, you don't have to just hate them just for
Exactly.
the sake of hating them. And I really, really love. I mean, that's why Mean Girls is as good as it is. That's why, and like I said, that's why I think that this stands alongside of that, because I mean, it's Tina Fey taking her own work and doing a new version of it for this film and maintaining all of that core that makes Mean Girls what it is. I think in a different writer's hands, this probably would have become something much, much different and probably much, much worse.
Yeah.
But I really think that's really, really great. Just be good to people. Don't
Yeah.
just be good to people. Get them out of
The
your burn book. Throw your burn books away, people.
The general message is great. You're right. And this
Yeah.
is a universal story too. Just the high school kind of, like, there's cliques in high school, and I mean, that can be told 1,000 years from now. Like, that's always going to be a thing that's going to be easy to spawn a message off of. But I really do like the message of Mean Girls, which is what you touched on. There's also a great line right before that about, when they say get off their, or stay off their dicks or whatever, about, just, calling someone else stupid doesn't make you smarter.
Yep.
And that kind of generic message, like, bringing somebody else down by insults or bullying or whatever doesn't make you a better person. Like, you're still, in fact, it makes you a worse person,
Which I think, especially in a modern sensibility, with how much people love to be keyboard warriors and things like that. They like to hide behind the shield of the screen,
sure.
whether it be their phone or their computer screen, hiding behind that and attacking somebody for having a disagreement with them. I mean, we're at a point in history where, people are incredibly politically divided and things like that. And people hate each other over, like, literally the most minute, stupid, silly things and want to just go at people for literally everything. And, like, I really think that people, if they modeled their lives after things like that, where they don't put people down, like, build people up.
Yep.
And like, don't treat other people like you're better than them. I really think that that's one of the most enduring things about this film, one of the most enduring kind of legacies of it is not treating people like you're better than they are. Like, you're not. Like, we're all on this ride on Spaceship Earth together. Yep. Like, let's make it the best possible ride that we possibly can for everybody involved.
Well said, brother. That was our discussion on Mean Girls 2024. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, we have a review next week, but we don't know what it is going to be yet. So what we're going to do is something that we do at least once a month or so. We spin the roulette wheel. Now, if you want to get involved, look below in the show notes, or if you're on YouTube, it's in the description below, to join our Patreon for as little as $1 a month. We have our patrons throw movies into the bucket, into the hat, and if it lands on the patrons when we spin the wheel, we will draw a movie or a patron's name out of the hat, and we will watch their movie, review it, full-blown review next week in the Retro Roulette Review. Or it could also land on myself, or it could land on Nick, which the wheel tends to be prone to Nick.
Give it to me, baby.
Give it to me
over there. I want it.
Last time it landed on him, we had to watch Marty Scorsese's Silence, and I'm still depressed after that viewing, and that was like 6 months ago. So, let me pull it up here, Nick.
Please, for the love of God, can you stop using this photo of you that it seriously looks like you're like the branch leader of some sex cult?
No,
this is like like the photo in the
funny?
Pamphlet, the photo in the pamphlet that you hand out to people where they're like,
what's funny?
Here's our great leader.
Hold on.
Great leader, Mr. Morris.
My followers love this picture, first of all. And second of all, it's funny you say that, because it didn't save it from before, because we haven't done this in a couple months. And I actually was like, you know what? I'm going to use the same picture. Fuck that guy.
God.
So there it is.
Literally, like Father Morris like Father Morris, like it's our
All right.
sex cult in the hills of North Carolina somewhere.
So we're gonna spin the wheel. It's gonna either land on Nick, myself, or the
Come on,
patrons.
baby,
Now,
come on.
now if it lands on the patrons, we'll have to put in all the movies and spin it again. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So here we go. Let's give the wheel a spin. 3, 2, 1.
Come on, baby, come on, baby, come on, baby. Ooh, patrons, yeah.
Oh my goodness!
All right.
Look at that.
Anything
All right.
but angels with the dirty faces. Let's go.
All right. Well, good news is it landed on the patrons. Bad news is there's going to be about 5 seconds of silence because now I have to put in all the movies. All right. So I have reset the roulette wheel to reflect all of the patron selected films that have been put into the hat for us, Nick.
Come on, best
So,
friends.
We're going to give it a spin. There's all kinds of shit on this wheel. I will shout out the patron that picked whatever movie we ended up landing on, and we will watch it this week and review it next week in one of our retro roulette reviews before we pick back up with current releases. And I think the following week we're going to do Argyle, I believe, with Henry Cavill.
Can't wait.
And Dua Lipa, so we'll check that out. All right, so let's give this wheel a spin, Nick, and let's see what movie we're going to be talking about next week. Here we go. Ready? 3, 2, 1, spin.
Come on, best friends. Not Postocalypse. Brad, I hate you.
What are we going to get here? Ooh!
Okay, I don't know. I have no idea what that is.
All right, so we landed on a movie called The Autopsy of Jane Doe. That is a horror movie, Nick. I've actually seen that movie, and from recollection, I really enjoyed it, so I'm excited. That's from Brett over at Dissect That Film, patron of the show,
Love you,
obviously. Brett, thanks a lot, brother. Man, Autopsy of Jane Doe, the gods are shining on me that it didn't land on one of basically Brad's picks.
I would have had to sign up for a Tubi subscription to watch Postocalypse.
Yeah, Postocalypse. This remains in the hat. I got to be honest with you. I think you'll like this one because it's not your run-of-the-mill horror. By the way, it's streaming on Hulu, just so you know, Nick. It's on Hulu. It's on Shudder. Autopsy of Jane Doe from 2016, directed by Andre Orvidal. So you probably recognize.
Oh, he
that
just
name.
did the Nosferatu one that we
That's
watched last year, right? Yeah.
Demeter,
Okay.
yeah. Last Voyage of the Demeter.
Last Voyage of Demeter, yeah.
But yeah, it stars Emil Hirsch, Brian Cox, who's been getting a lot of recognition for Succession lately.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen it since it came out, so it's been almost 7 years since I saw it. But I enjoyed it. But I'm very happy to revisit it, and that will be the review next week, Nick. The Autopsy of Jane Doe. Nick gets to talk about horror movies, so you know he's excited. Thank you, Brett, for the suggestion there. And
I get to go. I get to go to the theater this week, Gerald, and watch Poor Things. Excited for that.
Fucking finally, Jesus.
Yeah, excited for that. That's
you want to cover it on Patreon?
I wanted to maybe get it in today, but there was no way I was going to be able to do the double feature today.
Do you want to do a review on Patreon for it?
Maybe
For the
we'll
kids?
do a double feature: Poor Things and Postocalypse for Patreon.
So look forward to some more patron reviews, though, in all seriousness, now that the new year is here. We got hopefully a little more time on our hands. And we'll maybe try to throw up Poor Things if Nick gets a chance to see it over on Patreon. But no matter what, the main review next week will be 2016's The Autopsy of Jane Doe. Nick, that's it, man. Mean Girls is in the bag here, and you're still Fetch. And yes, I'm still trying to make that happen. Since 2007, it still hasn't happened, but I'm still trying. Nick, thanks for everything, man. I'll see you next week. We'll talk about horror movie.
I still just can't get over that picture of you that looks like you're the leader of some kind of weird sex cult. Like it's just, it's terrifying.
Nick, it's a cry for it. If you want to join the cult, brother, let me just end the call, okay? And I'll get you the information. All right.
Well, you get me.
I
okay.
can't talk
Yeah.
about it.
You gotta hit the. You gotta hit the stop. They're hearing all this, Gerald. They're hearing. You gotta hit the stop recording button first.
All right. You saw Under the Silver Lake. You know what's happening. All
we
right.
love you, everybody. Thank you so much. Be kind. Be kind to each other out there.
Yes.
And hey, calling someone stupid doesn't make you smarter.
That's right. Don't be a mean girl. We'll see you next week. All right, Nick. I'll talk to you then, man.
Fetch.